Hi and welcome back to my channel. It's Saturday the 14th of June 2025 and it's just before 9 AM. I'm going to kick off as normal with what's for the basket, and this week it is Taylor's coffee bags. I bought some of these for myself to try in the decaf, and so I got a box of caffeinated for the basket. I like them, but I do tend to drink a lot of decaf coffee at home because I drink caffeinated coffee when I'm out. These were in Morrison's at £5.50 for 2 boxes. When we were in Tesco's yesterday, I thought about picking up another box of the decaf, but theirs are £4 a box. And I think compared to what works out at £2.75 a box in Morrison's, that's a wee bit too expensive. I watched a documentary on Aldi and Lidl the other night, and in that documentary they said Aldi and Lidl's biggest competitor is Tesco. I'm not usually a Tesco shopper, but I was amazed by some of the prices in there, and not in a good way. Okay, if you're a Tesco shopper, forgive me, enjoy it, but I'm much more of a Sainsbury's, Aldi, Lidl and Asda girl. The word of affirmation this week is retrospective. Now, I want to look back in retrospect over a period of 6 months. I find this really beneficial for me to keep sight of where I've been in my weight loss journey, how far I've come in my weight loss journey, and where I'm at now in my weight loss journey. So looking back in my book over a 6-month period, and I find this is a good thing to do every 6 months. I've done it before a few times, but looking back in my weight loss journey to the second weigh-in in December, which was 6 months ago from this week, I was 13 stone 1.5. Then coming forward to the second weigh-in in March, which is 3 months ago, I was 12 stone 2.5. And then looking at my results this week, I was 11 stone 2. That really surprised me. So basically in the last 6 months, I have lost 1 stone 13.5. Now for some people that might not be a huge loss, but for the way I want to lose my weight and for the amount of weight I've got to lose, I'm really surprised and pleased about that. So I went into group this week, got on the scales and lost 2 pounds, which is more than I expected because I told you in a couple of videos ago I was planning to try and lose 1.5 pounds a month. So in looking back over the last 4 weeks, I've lost 2.5 pounds, which is perfect. That's fine. I'm okay with that. And I think there's more to losing weight than just looking at your weekly result. Because if you go into group this week and you don't get the result you feel you need or you feel you deserve, look back over the last month, look back over the last 2 months, 3 months, whatever it takes to actually boost your belief in yourself. Don't ever feel down about the amount of weight you lost this week. That's 1 week out of the rest of your life. And as it says in the Bible, we're expected to live, what is it, 70 years or 80 years or something. What the hell is 1 week? I mean, Joe always says to me about losing weight, you know, you've got to look at the bigger picture, because even if a week passes and you don't have a brilliant week or you don't have a brilliant loss, that week is going to pass anyway. You're always moving forward into the next week. So I'm going to share a little story with you. I don't know if anybody from my group watches these videos. I don't mind if they do, that's really nice, whatever. The last 2 weeks my consultant's been on holiday and I hope she's had a lovely time, but we've had a stand-in consultant guy and he was lovely, really lovely. But this week at group it all went a bit pear-shaped. The electronics didn't want to work properly. I'm going to speak it as it is. He forgot the raffle prize, which anybody could do. And basically it wasn't chaos, it was fine. He did really well with what he had. But the topic in the group for image therapy just about blew my bloody mind. I sit there every week in group. I want to hear about how to lose weight. I want to talk positively about moving forward, letting go of bad habits, stopping emotional eating, all these things that affect most of us, I believe. Or maybe not you, but most people. But what did we talk about this week? We talked about if you were in a situation like going to the cinema, going to a Chinese, going to the chip shop, going for an Indian, what would you have eaten before you were on plan? Followed by what would you eat today? So you're supposed to work out the the sin values of what you would have eaten before compared to the sin values of what you would eat today. Now I'm sorry, but I do not need to listen to a list from 20 odd ladies of what they would have eaten when they weren't on Slimming World. Because to my way of thinking, a lot of that is just trigger foods for other people in the room. It's also bloody irrelevant because we're not doing that anymore. We're on plan. We're trying to move forward. We don't need to focus on what we would have done 1 year ago, 2 years ago, etc. So my group, we were split into groups, and my group, it was what would you have eaten if you went to the chippy before group. Now, I'll be honest with you, I got to 22 stone by stuffing my face because we had a good chip shop. I'd have had a large chips, I'd have had a pie, I'd have had battered sausage, whatever. You get the gist, you don't need the list. But to sit and listen to 20 odd people talking about what they would have eaten when they weren't, before they came to plan, you know, I mean, for God's sake, can you get 40 different things from an Indian? We did, they did. I'm sorry, but my head was whirling. The lady next to me was saying, this is giving me a headache. I think the lady behind me said, how many of us are going to go to the chippy tonight? It's wrong in my thinking that we're talking about stuff like that in a Slimming World meeting with 2 new members, when what we should be focusing on is how to work the plan, how to let go of things like that without feeling resentful, how to let go of going to the chippy when you're tired, going to the Chinese when you're tired, going to the Indian when you're tired. Or you're just feeling lazy, you can't be asked, just go to wherever. I came out of that meeting with my head like, full of food. I'm fortunate today in that I don't need to react to any of that. I don't want to react to any of that. I feel like I've got a freedom where it doesn't pull me back into it. But I wonder how many people are going to come into group this week with the game, because it does pull a lot of people back into it. No criticism of the guy who took the group. I don't know whether he was given the information, this is how to do it, this is what you take your group on, whatever. But it just felt so, let's say wrong, is wrong the right word? I felt so uncomfortable listing what I would have eaten at the chip shop, and God knows how many sins it would have been, in front of 2 ladies sitting over here who had just come to join group. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, if I'd have been new in that group, and you sign up at the end of the group, don't you, I'd have said, I'll think about it, I might come back next week. Because if I'd heard all that in group, I'd have thought, I don't want to hear this every week. That's what I'm trying to get away from. Now, am I being oversensitive? Would you want to sit in group and listen to all that laughter? And one of them was like, what would you have eaten at the cinema? And it was like, oh my God. It was talk about have a meal before, have 100 calories, 100 sins while you're in there, and have a supper afterwards. I can't listen to that. I don't want to listen to that. There's 1,000 channels on YouTube about people who overeat, people who are 600 pounds or whatever. That's not what Slimming World is about. That's not what I'm about. That's not what my channel's about. And I don't think that's what most of you are about. So yeah, came out of group feeling, well, I think Joe would tell you, I jumped in the back of the car because we were giving somebody a lift home, and I slammed my door. I really wellied it. And I think Joe thought, uh-oh, what's up with her? That's how I felt. Am I oversensitive? Is it necessary to sit in group and listen to all that? As I say, no criticism of the guy who took the meeting because he is smashing. But I think the topic was way off the mark. Right, the other thing I need to share, because I'm only sharing all of these things because they're how they affect my life. I could have gone off plan Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, obsessed with all this stuff, because I'm not saying I don't like any of those foods. I'm not saying I'm an angel and I will never, ever, ever eat any of those foods. I'm just saying that for today, on plan, I am so grateful I don't choose or want any of those things. And as I said in my brief video about what I ate in a really busy day, our chip shop, which is what, 4 or 5 minute walk away, does half price meals between 3 and 4 o'clock. That's to attract the kids who are coming out of the big school up the road. But if I wasn't comfortably on plan, choosing food I love, and if I was back in the old days, that would attract me every day of the week. And it's just dangerous to talk about what we used to do. We're not here. Well, we are here because of what we used to do. It's what got me to 22 stone, all that crap. But I'm not here today to reminisce and laugh about what I used to do. I've left it behind, and I need to. Okay. Now, my final thing that's affected me this week that I wanted to talk about. Quite often when people vlog, not necessarily Slimming Worlders, people in general who take up going to the gym, the first thing I hear is, when you go to the gym, you're going to put on weight. When you start lifting weights, you're going to put on weight. Muscle weighs more than fat. Actually, no, it doesn't. Muscle is more concentrated and is smaller than fat, but doesn't weigh more. A pound of muscle weighs a pound of fat weighs a pound of feathers weighs a pound. They just take up a different space. So as you gain muscle, as you're losing fat, you need to be really aware that one of the things you're going to lose if you're not careful is muscle, especially if you're older like me. But when you start to make muscle, build muscle, that muscle is not going to weigh more than the bingo wings weigh, or the fat on your backside, or the top of your legs, or whatever. Because a pound of muscle weighs a pound, and it's more compact, so you'll get more definition from muscle than you would ever get from flobby fat, like I've got in places. But when people say on videos, oh, if you start to lift weights, you're going to gain weight, that actually puts some fear in me, thinking, the one thing I don't want to do is gain weight. I need to focus today on being healthier and stronger, not just being thinner, because I could be terribly thin and terribly skinny and have loads of loose skin, but be as weak as a kitten. That's not where I want to go this time. I want to actually be stronger. So I was very fearful of this. If you start to lift weights, you're going to gain weight. And I talked to Joe about it, and Joe just said to me, look, forget it. It'll all level itself out. Just let your body do what your body needs to do. So we started going to the gym, and we've been going over 2 weeks. And I started lifting weights, pulling weights, pushing weights, doing cables, all the different things that Kirsty would have recommended at one time, and I was adamant, you will never, ever, ever see me in a gym, Kirsty. That's currum if you see her comments. And I have to say, I am so glad I started to go, because I love it. It's not what I expected at all. My only experience of going to the gym before had been treadmill and bikes, and I hated them. I'd rather walk outside in the fresh air. I'd rather put me on the back of a tandem if you want me on a bike. But I'm not one for indoor exercise like that. So I start going with Joe, and he works me out an upper body program, because I want to get stronger. I need to be able to, get strong. I can feel the difference already in my arms. And I was nervous about gaining weight. So I went along to group after completing my first week at the gym, and I'd been 3 times, and I lost half a pound. So that was last week's results. And I've been to the gym 3 times this week, and I've pushed myself further, and the weights have gone up and the reps have gone up, and I've loved every minute of it. So when I went into group on Tuesday, I was like, got to keep a level head. If you've lost ½ a pound again, that's wonderful, that's what you're aiming for, but keep a level head. If the result is not what you wanted to see, it will level itself out because Joe told you so. So get on the scales, which had to be weighed manually because the electronics were out, but that's fine, it's the same weight. And I'd lost 2 pounds. So I actually am starting to breathe and feel relieved because it's obvious. Maybe some people do hold on to water weight. I've always said on my channel, I don't hold on to water weight. I'm not one of these people who have a good gush of a weight loss or a water loss. I've never joined Slimming World and had a big loss in my first week. Even this time around where I'd gained like 5 stone, I think I lost 1.5 pounds in my first week because that's how my body is. I don't hold on to lots of water. I'm not saying I never feel bloated by some foods, but that's a different issue. But yeah, I'm just grateful to be able to say, if you feel like I feel and you're worried about gaining weight through exercise so you don't exercise, which is true of a lot of people I talk to. I'm not going to start exercising, but I'll put weight on. It ain't necessarily so. I would just encourage you to have a go. And I would also encourage you that if you do find you want to try the gym, get somebody who knows how to set up the machines properly. Because honest to God, some of those machines would have me baffled. You have to change the height of your seat, you have to change the weight, you have to change the position of the whatever you pull in or whatever. It's not just a case of sit down and use it, because if I sat down to use it with the man who just got up off, the seat, I'd probably cripple myself. I worked in with the guy the other day. What exercise was I doing, Joe?
Rear delt flies.
Rear delt flies, yes. Fascinating. I was doing rear delt flies and this guy came over, and he's a young guy, and how many sets have you got left? And Joe said, just 1. But if you want to work in with us, because you have a rest period. Now the rest period between sets can be up to 2.5 minutes. I think when I used to go with my mate, we just used to move from set to set to set. We never had a rest period. And that's what you're supposed to do. So I'm on my rest period, so this guy comes in, he was doing a different exercise. He was doing chest presses or something.
Yeah, chest flies.
Yeah, chest flies. And I thought, when I went back to the machine, of course Joe then resets it to my weight, and I have to have all of the seats at the bottom because I'm such a short ass. And the thing that comes down over your legs when you do the pull down things, I have to have it on the bottom setting. Otherwise because I've got such short legs. But oh my God, I love it. I come out of there buzzing, don't I, Joe?
Yeah.
I come out of there buzzing. And then we go for a 3 or 4 mile walk straight after the gym. And it's just like, it energises me. And the one thing I am really, really surprised by is what a difference it makes to my mental health. My head just feels better because I've achieved something. And I can't tell you how much I love it. And I honestly thought I would hate it. So if you're thinking about exercise, if you're thinking about a type of exercise that works for you. My husband was away last weekend and they went to part of the Strictly Come Dancing tour. They did like a 3 or 4 day break. And all that dancing, which were like, forgive me, but no, not for me. If that's your bag, it's exercise, it's body magic, it's activity. Anything goes as long as you're not just sitting on your bum all day like I used to do. Or like I can still tend to do if I don't get myself motivated. Just get moving. That's my recommendation. I'm not telling you you have to do it, I'm suggesting you could. Anyway, that's me done. We've got to be somewhere in about 20 minutes and we've got some vintage stuff to post, and then I need to go to town, and I think we're going to have another one of those days where my feet barely touch the ground. But I love it. See you next Saturday. Bye.